Welcome back to Database DevOps from start to finish. This is the additional features section where we look at what else SQL Server data tools can do. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at source control and how we can use it to improve our database development lifecycle. So let's go over to our project. Right now we have no source control here, meaning if I make a change, there's no way of saying this is what has changed or to roll back that change. So we're going to change that. We're going to include source control so that we can have those rollback change options. So let's go to my Azure DevOps site. So this is my Azure DevOps. You can create your own by going to visualstudio.com and creating your own Azure DevOps site. It's free for up to 5 users. So it's a really great tool for source control and a whole lot more. Let's go to new project, and we're going to call this project Database DevOps, just to match our solution name. And this is a sample database DevOps project, something like that. And we'll set it as private, and we'll use Git. That's the default version control system. You could use Team Foundation version control. I highly recommend you do not. Use Git instead. The work item process, you can have Agile, Basic, CMMI, or Scrum, whichever you're familiar with. If you don't know, choose either Agile or Basic. And hit Create. Now you won't use the Agile versus Basic, so I'm just choosing Basic for this. This will take just a couple of seconds where it sets up for us a brand new project on Azure DevOps. If we go to repo, it's going to allow us to get started with a repository. Now, first I'm going to do, I'm going to create a README file down at the bottom. I'm going to add a git ignore as well and say Visual Studio and say initialize. Now from here, what I can do is I can either attach this to my existing project, or here's what I do. I find it easier to do this. Click the clone button and copy this. Now I can clone this project locally. Now I can move this aside and I can right click on my solution and open it in File Explorer. I'm actually going to go somewhere else. So I'll keep my folder open here. I'm going to open a new folder. In this case, this C temp folder. I'm going to say git bash here. Now I use the command line for git quite a bit, and I'm very familiar with it. You could do this with a tool, but I find this is just so easy. I just say git clone, and then I paste in that URL I copied from my Azure DevOps. I hit enter, and it's going to create a new folder for me called Database DevOps and clone in the files, and it's done. So now, Database DevOps, and there's my cloned in information. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to copy these files, not the .vs file. Copy the rest, right click, copy, and then down here, right click and paste. And that pastes in this project. Now I can close out this, and I'm also going to close out Visual Studio. So I hit OK, or close this out. Yes, I want to, interesting, I didn't have something saved in here. I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to recopy those files. So let's open that folder back up. I'm going to recopy them. I've already deleted them from my other location, and I paste them back in. Then I make sure I have the latest version of everything. And now I'm going to open up this solution, which is the same solution as before, it's just in a new location. But it's in the location that is currently under source control. So now once this loads and we look at our files, nothing seems different, but if I go to changes, I can see there's a whole bunch of changes here. These are all the files that I have to change. What I can do is on the very top folder, right click and say stage to add everything, but then I want to come back through and review and make sure there's nothing going up that I don't want to go up. One of the things that's going up is that schema compare. And if I double click on this and look at it, I do know it has a connection to my database. This might have something in it that is not something I want to go up to the server, in which case I would exclude this from my publish. So I could do that by right-clicking and saying unstage. The rest of this looks good. I don't have, if you notice, I don't have my publish profiles. That's got a little red icon next to it saying it's being ignored. So now I can commit the rest of this, which is the, let's just say initial commit. The project as it is when we add it to source control. And I can hit commit staged. And now I can sync that up to Azure DevOps. And now once this is done, Azure DevOps will have all of my changes. If I hit refresh, there are all of my SQL scripts. So we go to tables. There's the table script for address, for person, for purchase. The view that we just modified, it's a little small, but there's all the source files that I need. So why is this useful? Well, whenever I make a change to any of these things, I can create a commit. And that change will be stored on the server as a separate change from all the rest. So I could roll back that change and say, you know what? That wasn't a good change, and bring it backwards. So that's a really helpful feature. We can change things here, and then everyone can see what's changed, just the changes, and we can undo changes that we find are a problem, just like we can with source control for, let's say, C#. Now, I'm not going to go into a complete explanation of Git and how it works and how commits work, because if you need that, I have separate videos for that. But this is just to demonstrate that just like your C# code or any other type of code you use source control for, just like that, we can put our database project in source control. This is something that typically we've had to buy expensive tools in order to accomplish. But now with SQL Server Data Tools, we can do that for free. So we can have all of our commits, all of our source code. It's all right here on the server. We can look at what the changes are, all the rest. Okay, so that is one of the additional features we can add with our SQL Server Data Tools. Now let's look at another.